Representative Dean Davis pleads not guilty to felony charges.
Yeah,
So tell us.
this looks like it's going to go to trial, and his elective office is on the line because our Constitution says if you're convicted of felony, you're out.
And what was his felony?
Well,
I've heard there's some debate as to whether he's automatically rejected or not if it's a felony. I mean, I just heard both. I haven't researched it.
Constitution says so.
Okay.
Got to be convicted.
So then,
No, it has to be a felony.
Yeah, felony.
Misdemeanor. If
what
they
is
can,
the
if you can get it
alleged
pled down to misdemeanor.
He was arrested, and this is where it gets tricky because there's no dash cam, no badge cam. He was arrested for DUI.
no data, as far as I'm aware. No physiological inputs.
He refused to take a breathalyzer test. He wanted a blood test.
Isn't that his right under the Fifth Amendment?
Yes, it is absolutely his right.
And
don't they have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I just wonder how it's even possible for them to prove that he's guilty if there's no physical evidence?
Bingo.
To prove beyond a shadow of a doubt.
This is
I
where
think he wins.
Yeah, this is where it does get tricky because the way that the cops in Broken Arrow handled it is they were going back and forth. They started taking him to the hospital and say, okay, let's do the blood test. And then they turned around and said, no, we're not going to do
There's
it.
a thought that he's having a diabetic incident.
What we do have, the only evidence we have, is while he's in a holding cell in Broken Arrow, he's calling his legislator.
And he doesn't slur a single word. It's amazing. Guy sounds
That's
like he hadn't had a drink in weeks.
True.
So yeah, it was interesting, and there's some narrative. Again, if Dean's testimony is believable, this is on shaky grounds because what he has to do is prove that the cop was just being as belligerent as the cop claims he was.
Wait, Dean has to prove something, or they have to prove something?
That's a good point. What I'm saying is to put up a narrative to counteract what the cop says.
So I'm fascinated to watch this. As an amateur science admirer, I would like to see how they can place alcohol compounds in his blood at that time without any physical evidence. I'm really fascinated to see how they do that.
Yeah. So
his training. The police officer's training is so complete that it cannot be questioned.
I just want to know how many alcohol molecules there were in his blood based upon his training.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see that validated.
It won't matter because it's all about the officer's testimony.
Dave, hold on, I want to ask you, because he refused to volunteer a breathalyzer sample,
And incriminated.
they said, now you are guilty of obstruction.
Well, that's become the latest narrative, and that will be something that I think I will be talking to Steve tomorrow about because it's his office that are bringing the charges.
Yes.
And if they are bringing obstruction charges for actually just asserting your rights under the Constitution. And so you assert your Fifth Amendment right to not self-incriminate, not to do anything that is incriminating to yourself voluntarily, that they then need to go do it. That is not obstruction in the slightest.
Right.
And to call it that is criminal on the part of those doing the calling.
Remember when the Miranda right says you have a right to remain silent. That's a constitutional right. You had that right before they even told you had that right.
Yes, it was just, and people knew it, but not everybody did. Okay. So they need the court ruling was just you've got to remind everybody at the time.
What I think we could see emerge from this is one of the greatest civil libertarian champions in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. And the reason I say that isn't to puff up Dean, it's to say, you know what? When the shoe's on the other foot, it's easy to make all these rules. Like Dean was one of them who voted that when they arrest you, they can take your DNA.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Oh,
I bet his opinion's changed a little bit.
Okay. Well, let me for sure check on that. He might have been one
I
of them.
thought he was a little bit better than that.
I don't know about that specifically, but I know he did really well on some of our indices that he voted for liberty.
Yeah, I think he might have been one because he ended up being like the second or third highest in Freedom Index.
He was the highest freshman legislator, freshman House member on the Freedom Index.
He and Jay Stegall tied.
And it was very impressive.
Yeah, and so, this is where the rubber meets the road because one of the people he called is his colleague, Representative Ross Ford, a career Tulsa Police Department officer. And Ford says, no, you pretty much got to do what they said, know, and so Ford is going to give the mantra of what the cops
He
want.
might have been a little biased.
Yeah, but nonetheless, who did Dean reach out to was a career cop who he had, trust in his advice on. I think he's going to have a little bit of problem with some of that testimony. I think politically there's some damage when you try to make it sound like, do you know who I am? How dare you? Let me talk to the chief of police.
Yeah, the better argument would be like, I'm a normal guy like my constituents.
Yeah,
Right.
So, yeah, some of that stuff happened, but
But those are political issues, not matters of right, not matters
Right.
of whether or not he's guilty or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, is that when somebody asserts their rights, and this is across the nation, folks, that these obstruction cases are going.
Mm-hmm.
It has become the mantra of police. They've figured out that this will work. The courts are accepting it.
Based on precedent.
Because they're the gatekeepers to all this injustice. If the courts didn't allow it, it would stop instantly.
And there's another guy that probably sympathizes a little bit with Dean Davis. This guy named Donald J. Trump.
Same thing. They're doing the same thing too.
He's obstructing Kangaroo Court.
Right.
He's obstructing an investigation somehow.
Well, yeah, when you plead
Trying to
guilty,
get him on false.
pleading guilty is obstructing the prosecution.
And I want to on this note, I want to commend the Spaniards who are demonstrating and pretty vociferously, in fact, in clashing with police over the conviction of Catalan separatists.
You mean the terrorists?
They, I don't know what all they were about, but people want to let Catalans leave them alone. The Spaniards will not do that. They're cracking down on them, and so there have been people rising up in the streets to actually try to protect these people who they think have been wrongly convicted.
On that note, I'd like to give a shout out to the NBA for being such a stalwart defender of human rights and standing up to communist China on their long storied list of human rights abuses. Good job, NBA.
Back to the Dean Davis thing. I got a question about if there's no blood alcohol data, it's one witness against another one. The police officer has to give us a reasonable testimony that he believes that Dean Davis was drunk. So, because Dean Davis is a state representative, wouldn't it be reasonable to look at the politics of the police officer? He did just recently fire a guy for his posts that were offensive. So,
Dean
what are the
actually
policeman's politics?
From what I understand, Dean has actually thought that it was a setup, and that he was followed as he left a dinner that he was at, and specifically invited to go to, and so he has thought that it was something specifically done politically because of some of the stands.
Well, and
how true that is, and so forth, and those are nigh impossible to.
Well, it is
prove.
very interesting. When you call,
it would be something that I would
the police for a break-in, it's about 45 minutes for them to get there or more. But interestingly enough, Dean was only a few miles away from where he left. I mean, wow, they were Johnny on the spot, if that's the case. But I would say, he voted for constitutional carry, and we know that most of the police unions oppose it as one issue. So we know that there is reason to believe that police officers would be opposed to his politics.
It would be plausible reasonable to look through the public posts of this police officer.
While we're investigating things, why not investigate?
Well, let's get his phone.
Well, it was, Aspen.
Trust me, I believe his lawyers are doing it.
Far South Broken Arrow, Aspen Avenue is very dark. And, for that cop to have gotten, for Dean to have gotten the attention of that cop, I want to know, what led to it, that narrative.
Do we need dash cams?
Yeah, well,
that'd be nice, right?
It would solve a lot of
cams.
things, wouldn't it? And, the sad thing is you hear when people get shot by a cop all the time, cops kill somebody, and the cops always say, if you just do what we said, none of this would have happened.
Play video games at 2 in the morning.
Hey, that's what the criminals say. If you'd have just handed over the money, you wouldn't have got shot.
For the win!
You had nothing to hide. You got nothing to fear, guys. You need a Fourth and Fifth Amendment. That's for criminals.
Yeah. So don't stand up for your rights. So
I just want to read this real quick. We always take it for granted. I think most of our viewers are very intelligent and they know what the Fifth Amendment says. Paraphrase, but just reading it says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself,
right,
nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
Right.
So you can get into public domain with that, or eminent domain. So
you get into taxation.
Where in the world, where would a traffic stop fit into the category of the Fifth Amendment? I mean, where would it be an indictment of a grand jury?
He's not charged with an infamous crime.
Right. There's no argument at all, I think, where you could say a traffic stop would compel you to give up your Fifth Amendment right.
Yeah, what they have, typically before a criminal trial, there is a hearing on the evidence or a grand jury. So one or the other. And I believe when I looked in the records, he's waived his right to the hearing once it goes straight to either the trial or maybe they're still negotiating a settlement.
How many guilty people do that?
Yeah. Well, here's
They're starting to cloud the issue.
No, this is...
If we're just tuning in, you're tuning into 3D Politics. I'm Tom McKay, your fine host. I've got David Van with SoonerPolitics.org, David Oldham with ConstitutionalGrounds.com, and of course David D'Ambroso on Facebook at Dave D'Ambroso. You can contact me, Tom McKay, right here at 3D Politics. I've got two more stories when we're finished with this one before we're done.
I just want to say in 1993, then Governor David Walters had all kinds of criminal charges against him for campaign violations. And, they were all there, but what he did was go with D.A. Macy, I believe is his last name, and plea bargained it down to a misdemeanor. And then he was allowed to go into the county courthouse there in Oklahoma City after hours, a locked courtroom, and plead guilty to a misdemeanor.
Well, you can't
all done in secret.
You can't have politics without crime. I mean, really?
Yeah.
I mean, what? If they're making prostitution illegal, they're making politics illegal.
Yeah,
Come
on.
I mean, was he worse than Fallon, really?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You've got one politician, Kunzweiler, up against another politician, Dean Davis. And if Kunzweiler does anything less than charge the felony, then Kunzweiler could suffer, at the polls. Because he's not enforcing the law evenly. You see what I'm saying?
You mean like not charging both the prostitute and the purveyor?
Yeah.
You mean like that?
Yeah, exactly. Great.
Okay, I was getting confused.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But again, he's concerned about optics because he's got to run for re-election. So he's got his thing.
Does he have a strong prostitute constituency?
Don't put yourself out there.
And this is why I know you don't believe in term limits. This is why I believe that our DAs, our prosecutors, should be term limited up, because I've seen it over and over again. Over time, in order to ratchet up notches on their belt, they'll go after the poor, not necessarily minorities. Particularly, I see it more the poor who don't have the money to defend
low-hanging
themselves.
fruit.
Yeah.
They pad their records.
Yes.
I have a great record. This person can't defend himself.
Well, Trey Gowdy has a 100% record, right? As a prosecutor, and that was exactly what David's talking about.
Well, if he couldn't do a slam dunk, he usually negotiated out a court plea.
Of course.
Yeah.
But my point is that the things that he did get, they were low-hanging fruit, and there were things he's
And
able
to call
to manipulate.
Kunzweiler a politician, I think, is kind of diminishing his actual role, because I think anyone in the legal system is more like a cleric or a bishop above society. They're like these super
He
branch
should be
of
acting
society.
that way, but he acts as a politician.
No, I have a problem with both, because he does let his values impact things and that. And I have, on the marijuana case, you and I debated on that, and yeah, it's just this,
Wait, he actually debated you?
Yeah, it was after a meeting.
I'm going to give him some points for that. I'm shocked.
And well, he was criticizing me. George McFarland and I were snickering at a point he made, and he goes, "I saw you snickering."
Don't do that to the bishop.
And the bishop would be accurate because that is his Roman Catholic faith. But again,
Well, they are a super branch. They legislate and judge.
I'm going to, it'll be a little bit of a bastardization of what C.S. Lewis said, that the moral busybody is worse than the tyrant, because the tyrant might grow tired of his oppressiveness, but the busybody will never.
It's a progressive.
Because they are affirmed by their own conscience that what they're doing is in your best interest.
Yeah.
It's when Kunzweiler says, "I'm doing you a favor by sending you to prison," he was arguing against 781, which would have moved it back to misdemeanor. He says, "No, I need to be able to prosecute a felony for simple possession."
I want you to solve the 40 to 60% of unsolved murder cases
Oh my God.
before you get the guys that like to smoke marijuana.
Well, the point is, again, that what he was having a problem with was actually a right. And he has a problem with people exercising their rights at times, and that's always been my criticism
we
of
can't
Steve.
blame
And I
him. That
have
was
to get
part
him
of his
elected.
that's part of his catechism.
Yeah, and Steve, if you're listening, there are good things about you that we honestly like.
Still are.
I like that you're not Ben Fu, and I really like how you held your cards really close to your chest during that election, and you didn't say anything, and Fu was just pummeling you. And then you were like, "Who did you vote for in 2008?" And he's like, "Barack Obama," and I'm proud for him. Oh, interesting. Who did you vote for in 2012, Ben Fu? Barack Obama. I'm proud for him. And you were like, "I rest my case." Brilliant. Worked out great.
So is that a prosecutor or a politician?
Both.
Well, they're both, because they have to get elected, so they have to be a politician.
Okay.
By the same token, and this is why, again, I come back to, we the people are putting in and not asking the right questions. We're putting in people who are actually disqualified from office.
Yeah, because the right question, if you'll ask him this tomorrow, if the nagging wife of an unemployed man forces him to get a job at the coal mine, is she the pimp or the victim?